Good evening. My name is Corcoran. I'm the Executive Director of Clubhouse International, and I want to say welcome and thank you for coming to our event tonight. We're very pleased that you're here. We're just so happy to have people who would come out on Wednesday night to talk, to have a little fun with us, and to talk about mental illness. So thank you for being part of our event. We are truly pleased and grateful that you are here. The evening is designed to be mostly fun, but a little bit educational. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the issue that's so important to us, mental illness, and the way we respond to it. We have a short program tonight, but we have some terrific speakers. So, I guess before I go much further, I want to thank all of you for not only coming tonight, but for supporting Clubhouse International and our mission to change the way the world responds to mental illness. I want to acknowledge our sponsors for tonight. Our sponsors have been very generous and have helped us raise just under $100,000 for this event tonight. So thank you very much. This will certainly make a big difference helping us as we work to help people living with mental illness across the globe. Please take a look at your program a little bit later and you can see who our sponsors are. I would like to also acknowledge and express our terrific and great appreciation for our event committee chair, Jennifer Tedesco. And I want to say thank you as we get started to Anna Sackett and Maggie Figueroa and Asia Wolf. And before people pay attention less, I would like to ask the members of the board of directors of Clubhouse International who are in the room to raise your hands. So take a look around and see these people. They are people who volunteer their time and energy and effort year after year to help this organization be successful. If you want to know more about the work you hear about tonight, they can tell you about that. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to acknowledge the skincare company Philosophy, who together with their foundation Hope and Grace is donating 1% of their product sales to community mental health efforts, and they have provided little goodie bags for you to take away with you tonight when you leave, so please take one of those when you leave. In it is a copy of our annual report. I hope you will read that thoroughly, front to back and back to front, and get to know more about who we are and what we're doing. I want to tell you a little bit about our speakers tonight. The person who's going to speak after me is Tina Maria Revelo from Citiview Connections Clubhouse in Queens. And she has a story to tell you about her experiences. And then we also have the Honorable Stephen Leifman. Judge Leifman is really a tireless and effective advocate who's at the forefront of trying to change public policy on a national basis to reduce the number of people with mental illness who are in our prisons, and to change public policy to support alternative approaches that offer treatment and recovery services. He is a big fan of the Clubhouse approach. Judge Leifman has received numerous awards for his good work and tireless efforts. Most recently, he's been named a recipient of the 2015 William H. Rehnquist Award for Judicial Excellence. One of the nation's highest judicial honors, the Rehnquist Award, is presented annually to a state court judge who exemplifies judicial excellence, integrity, fairness, and professional ethics. So we have a very special man speaking to us tonight. I first met Judge Leifman when I was fortunate enough to be on a podium with him for an event in South Florida for a clubhouse. And when I heard him speak from the heart about the issues of mental illness and people living in prison, mostly due to mental illness, I knew we found a kindred spirit, and he has been very gracious and spoken with us and joined us on several occasions. Speaking about awards, I wanted to tell you, if you didn't know, that about a year ago, together with the first Clubhouse, Fountain House here in New York, Clubhouse International was named co-recipient of the Conrad Hilton Humanitarian Prize. The Humanitarian Prize is the largest humanitarian prize in the world. It is presented to organizations judged to have made extraordinary contributions to alleviating human suffering. We are very, very honored to have received this award and to be partners in that award with Fountain House. We couldn't be more pleased because the award demonstrates a new recognition to the urgency and life-threatening issues of mental illness and to the hard work and daily efforts done by men and women in our more than 300 clubhouses in 34 countries around the world. Every single day in our clubhouse programs, thousands of people overcome the daily challenges of mental illness and rebuild their lives and reclaim their futures. Today, Clubhouse International reaches 100,000 people every year. That's good progress, but it's not nearly enough. The problem is that 450 million people across the world live with a mental disorder. 1 in 4 people today has a mental disorder. So we're just scratching the surface. We have a lot of work to do. So many people around us every day are fighting the raging battle with mental illness that most of us don't see. People all around us are suffering, and to quote a recent visitor to New York City, Pope Francis, they are living amongst us in deafening anonymity. This is where we come in. This is where Clubhouse International comes in. We are working our mission. Our mission is to work to end social and economic exclusion for people living with mental illness. With the help of friends like you, all of you, we are making a difference. And we are determined to change the world for people living with mental illness and the lives of so many people that support and care for them every day. So that's all I have to say tonight, to give you a little snapshot of who we are. I want to, before I go too much further, I want to thank the terrific jazz ensemble that we have tonight with us. They're going to come back and play a little more for us after our speakers. But now we're going to hear from Tina Maria Revelo. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome. I want to share part of my story, my experience at the Clubhouse. My hardship began when my hands were affected by carpal tunnel and trigger finger. This made it impossible and painful to pick it up and hold objects, or even just to strain out my fingers. The pain I experienced was overwhelming. As the condition of my hands began to worsen, I was led to face the death of my father, whom I loved dearly. He died from prostate cancer. The mental anguish of his death, on top of all the physical pain I was having, was extremely hard for me to deal with. This was the beginning of a terrible time in my life. I became very depressed and anxious. After losing both of my jobs I have been working in, I felt useless and powerless or living a normal life. Soon I was doing nothing except stay at home and going to see a therapist. This led me to the awful isolation, since I felt that none of my friends understood what I was going through. I began to experience the deep stigma that exists against people struggling with mental illness. And I learned that rarely people really understand how hard life is for someone suffering suffering from severe depression and anxiety. Even my mother didn't understand me. When I went to see my therapist, she would say, Tina Maria, why are you going to the therapist? You are not cuckoo. It took me a long time for the doctors to find the right medication and doses for my mental condition, but I finally came about it. But even with the right medication, I was still terribly isolated, and my life had no direction or sense of hope. Then one day, while waiting in the psychiatric clinic, I spoke to another patient about how I didn't want to spend the summer in total isolation, as I had been doing for so long. He told me that he was a member of the Clubhouse, which had changed his life. I had never heard about a Clubhouse. I had never ideas that place even exists. As a result of this short conversation, I went to visit Citiview Connections Clubhouse in July 2014. I decided to become a member. When I spoke to Russell Rotten, the director of Citiview Connection, he told me that everyone is equal at Citiview, whether you are a staff worker or a Clubhouse member. I soon got to know all the members and staff at Citiview, and I began to socialize again. Unlike before, where I used to isolate myself at home, I began to replace the loneliness with genuine and fulfilling relation with the staff and members of my Clubhouse family. As part of my personal treatment plan, attended Citiview Connections Clubhouse and enjoyed Citiview so much that I love to contribute my strength and my talents to help other members at the Clubhouse. I feel that I want to repay Citiview with my services for all they have done for me. Citiview Connection has provided me with friends and a place where I can get involved in all the work that keeps our Clubhouse functioning. I help out with all the kinds of work around the Clubhouse, and I have also done some public speaking for the Clubhouse to help raise awareness of the stigma about mental illness. I had even offered Zumba classes for my Clubhouse college. And it's wonderful for me to know how much the Citiview members and staff appreciate my talents in this area. In short time, I began to feel like my old self again, working hard and socializing with friends. To my surprise, this hard work did not go unnoticed. After 4 months at the Clubhouse, our Clubhouse director spoke to me about a job opening as a PR specialist with Goodwill Industries. He felt that I was a good candidate since I was so motivated and liked by all his fellow members. Sure enough, I was hired. This really boosted my self-esteem. I cannot tell people that I work. This job rewards me with money. However, the biggest reward is that I'm helping others while I do it. Helping members find and keep employment is a big part of what every Clubhouse does. During those difficult years, my suffering was immeasurable, but by holding and never giving up, I began to fulfill my hopes and dreams. My Clubhouse gave me my life back. They believed in me when I had stopped believing there was not any hope or any recovery was possible. Today, my Clubhouse is my second family. I know I will be okay, and there is hope, and when things get hard and I start losing my way, I know my Clubhouse friends and colleagues will hold me up until I feel strong again. I'm so grateful to have a place like Citiview Connection Clubhouse where I will always belong.
Good evening. My name is Steve Leifman, and it really is a privilege for me to be here. And I want to thank all of you very, very much, not only for being here this evening, but for the wonderful work that you're doing to enhance this remarkable program. I will tell you that when I became a judge, I had no idea I was actually becoming the gatekeeper to the largest psychiatric facility in Florida. And sadly, that was the Miami-Dade County Jail. 1 in 4 of the world's inmates are in United States jails today. 1 in 104 adults in the United States are behind bars tonight. 1 in 33 adults in the United States are under court supervision. Since 1980, the number of people going to jail in the United States has tripled, and their sentences have been increased by 166%. And as you drill down and you look at these numbers more deeply, you will find much of the reason is due to untreated mental illness. People with mental illness in the United States are 14 times more likely to be incarcerated than hospitalized. They are 30 times more likely to find a bed in jail than any state civil hospital. Annually, we have about 1.5 million people with serious mental illnesses arrested in the United States. On any given day, we have about 500,000 people with serious mental illnesses in jails and prisons, and another 850,000 under court supervision. This is more than just a moral crisis. It is a shameful American tragedy that must be reversed. My journey into the mental health world actually began one morning when I was getting ready to go on the bench, and I was approached by the assistant state attorney and the assistant public defender, and they asked me if I would speak to a couple whose son was in jail on a case I was about to hear. At the time, I was handling what we call a misdemeanor jail division. It's basically 3 kinds of people in a misdemeanor jail division. Those are people charged with low-level offenses that are still in custody. And they're there because either they have an attached serious charge and they're not allowed out, they're too poor to bond out, or they have mental illnesses and they can't get out. So this lovely couple came into my chambers. They were very, very distraught. Mom was crying, the dad was shaking. And they started to beg me to get their son help. They told me that their son was a brilliant man. He'd gone to Harvard. He had a late onset of schizophrenia and was now homeless and recycling through the criminal justice system. And they didn't know what to do. I was pretty new at the time, and I think when you're a new judge, you think you have a lot more wisdom and a lot more power than you really do. And I made the mistake of promising them that I would get their son help because I had absolutely no education as a judge at this point about mental health. I was under the assumption that if you got arrested and you had a serious illness, there must be some system in place to take care of you. Because if you got arrested and you had a heart attack, we had a very clear, simple system of care for that individual. So I made this promise and started to go back into the courtroom. My mom stopped me and she said, "Judge, there's one more thing I need to tell you about my son." She said, "Not only is he brilliant, but he probably knows more about the mental health system than you do." And I looked at her and I said, "Excuse me?" And she said, "Well, you see, my son is the former head of psychiatry at Jackson Memorial Hospital, the largest public hospital in Florida." I was pretty taken back. I went in and I called his case. And he stood, and we started to have an amazing conversation. He clearly was every bit the Harvard-educated doctor they told me he was. He was brilliant. He was coherent. He was thoughtful. He was more respectful than the lawyers. And I'm sitting there thinking, my God, is there something wrong with his parents? This doesn't really add up. Except when you looked at him, he looked like a homeless man who hadn't bathed in 3 months. And he kept insisting there was absolutely nothing wrong with him. He had no kind of mental health disorder. And if I would only release him, he promised me he would go see a doctor, and he'd come come back after his evaluation. And I have to tell you, he wasn't even in on a statutory offense. He was in on some local ordinance, like possession of a dairy cart. And he'd probably been in a couple of weeks already. And I said, well, you know, I don't want to keep you in jail any longer either, because this charge is really ridiculous. I said, but can I ask you a question, because I don't understand something. I said, sure, Your Honor, anything. I said, I just don't understand one thing. If you really don't have a mental illness, why would a Harvard-educated doctor be homeless and recycling through the criminal justice system? And all of a sudden, he got a look on his face that I will not forget to the day I die. I can only describe it as a look of someone who must believe they're about to die. It was the most frightened look I've ever seen a fellow human have on her face. And all of a sudden, he started rocking back and forth. And he started cupping his ears. He clearly was hearing voices, starting to have a psychotic episode right in front of my eyes. And all of a sudden, he started screaming, wailing at the top of his lungs. And everything he said was in sixes. And he started pointing to the back of the courtroom where his parents stood. And he started yelling, Your Honor, Your Honor, Your Honor, Your Honor, Your Honor! You have to have that couple move, couple move, couple move. I said, aren't those your parents? No, 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 no. My real parents died, Holocaust, 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 Holocaust. They're from the CIA, and they came to kill me. The only thing you could hear was his mother crying. Since I had no training, the extent of my knowledge was that if someone acted strange or bizarre, you order a psychological evaluation. Well, I ordered an evaluation. He sat in another couple of weeks. The evaluation came back. It said he was incompetent to stand trial. He was in need of immediate hospitalization. At the time in Florida, I needed 3 evaluations to get the lawyers to stipulate or agree. I ordered 2 more evaluations. He's now in jail another 4 to 6 weeks on possession of a dairy cart. All 3 evaluations came back. It said he was incompetent to stand trial, and he needed immediate hospitalization. I began to order him into hospitalization, and I'm thinking, this is great. I'm going to be a hero. I'm going to fulfill the promise I made to his parents. I'm going to get this guy help. We're going to live happily ever after, and I'll never have to worry about mental health again. Well, as I began to order him into involuntary hospitalization, I looked down and I noticed that the assistant public defender had a little grin on her face. I will tell you, I am a former assistant public defender, and the grin is a bad thing. And she uttered those famous words. I know I have a couple lawyers in here, I don't know how many, but she said, Your Honor, in all due respect, trust me, it has nothing to do with respect when they say that to the judge. She said, Your Honor, you cannot do that. This is a county court case, and you are a county court judge. County court judges in Florida have absolutely no authority to involuntarily hospitalize anyone. And she whipped out a Florida Supreme Court case, which had just come out, which of course I had never heard of because we had no training in mental health. And she was absolutely correct. My only choice was to release him back to the street, floridly psychotic. Not only was I unable to fulfill the promise I made to his parents, I put him at risk, I put my community at risk, I probably put my job at risk, but I followed the law. And I will tell you, we do not become judges to be part of that kind of problem. I went back to my chambers, I got on the phone, I started making calls because I needed to learn more, because I was never, ever going to let this happen again. I learned 3 very, very valuable lessons that morning. First, it turned out that Miami-Dade County has a very serious mental health crisis. It turns out we have the largest percentage of people with mental illnesses of any urban area in the United States. 2 to 3 times the national average of people with mental illnesses live in Miami-Dade County. That's 9.1% of our general population, 155,000 adults, 50,000 children. And because Florida, where often the emphasis is on the last 2 letters, we are 49th or 50th in per capita funding for mental illnesses, and our jails have become the largest psychiatric facilities in floor time. We spend $218,000 a day, that's $85 million a year, to warehouse people with mental illnesses in our jail. And because we had not trained our law enforcement how to deal with this problem very well, since 1999, we've had about 25 people with serious mental illnesses die during an encounter with the police because the police had not been trained on how to deal with it. That was the first lesson. The second lesson I learned is this was not just a state or local problem, but it turned out to be a national problem as well. Former Surgeon General David Satcher called mental illness the silent epidemic of our times. I will tell you, if you work in the criminal justice system, there is absolutely nothing silent about this epidemic. We hear their cries, we see them scream, and we see their pain every single day. And the third lesson, and maybe the most difficult lesson, is that our community mental health system and laws are horribly antiquated, fragmented, and do not reflect modern research, science, and medicine. And they need great, great reform. I will tell you, after doing this for 15 years, it's become quite evident to me that if we treated people with primary health care the way we treated people with mental illness, there would be a plethora of lawsuits and criminal indictments for gross negligence. It is despicable what we have done. There's several drivers to this. I'll be quick because I know you're standing and I want to keep you on your feet all evening. I didn't eat today. The first problem is mental health is horribly under-resourced. Now, I saw this commercial the other day, and I think it was from something like Cancer Centers of America. And it was this beautiful ad. And they showed this beautiful facility, and the ad came up and it said, "We will take care of every one of your needs. We will take care of the transportation, your housing. We will talk to your family. We will take care of your mental health aspects of your cancer issues." You almost wanted to have cancer after you saw that. "And we will make you whole. We will approach the holistic part of you to really help you get better." Mental illness could not be any further from that. We do none of that. There's nothing warm. There's nothing welcoming about our treatment systems. It's not so much that people with mental illnesses end up in jail because of their mental illness directly. They're so marginalized. They're so defeated. They're so depressed on top of their mental illnesses. They don't want to even seek the help that they need. The second problem is Medicaid doesn't even pay for the right services. They generally only pay for what we call medically needed, which is very important. Medication is critically important. But we know that programs like Clubhouse have as much to do with people's recovery as anything. We know that the act of working not only is good, but it physiologically helps the brain recover. And so it's not just a good thing someone's working and giving back to society, it's actually making their brain stronger. Eric Kandel was with us last year, the neuroscientist, Nobel winner, and he talked about how the brain actually can get better through the act of doing things you love, like work. So not only is a program like the Clubhouse a good thing, it's critically important to the individual's own recovery. The third thing is our involuntary hospitalization laws, unfortunately, were developed really in the 1700s in England. They're really outdated. And they need to be upgraded to reflect what we know about the mind and science today. From a taxpayer point of view, we're wasting billions of dollars in this country. We did a little study in Miami because we started to set up some great programs to divert people to treatment. We wanted to see if we could wrap our arms around the people that were accessing these services the most. So we have this great institution down there that has access to involuntary hospitalization and criminal justice records and all these records, and they could tell a community who the highest utilizers of both criminal justice and mental health services are. So I commissioned them to do a study, and I'm thinking, okay, there's probably a few thousand people, but at least that's a start. I can wrap my arms around them and get them the help they need. Wait, and finally, I get a letter. I open it up. On this piece of paper are the names of 97 people, primarily men, primarily diagnosed with some kind of schizoaffective, schizophrenia disorder, homeless, who in a 5-year period were arrested 2,200 times, spent 27,000 days in the Dade County Jail, 13,000 days in a psychiatric facility emergency room, and cost taxpayers almost $13 million. We got absolutely nothing for it. Now, we would have been better off sending them to Harvard because at least they would have had a shot at an education and it would have been cheaper. Our prisons are the fastest growing psychiatric facilities in the country. The numbers are astounding. In my own state, if we don't do something immediately to curb this growth, Florida will have to build 10 new prisons over the next 10 years just for people with mental illnesses. The cost to build and operate 10 prisons over 10 years in Florida is almost $2.5 billion. Most of these individuals are not even committing heinous offenses. The average stay is only 2.5 to 4 years. You have to ask yourself, isn't there something wrong with the society that's willing to spend more money to incarcerate people that are ill than to treat them? The good news is this is really fixable. Most of the solution is in the community. Treatment works, diversion works, training people how to deal with these issues work. In Miami-Dade County, we have the largest trained squad of law enforcement officers in the United States trained in what we call Crisis Intervention Team Policing, CIT. Between 2010 and 2014, my 2 largest agencies in Dade County, my CIT officers handled 48,669 mental health calls in 5 years and only made 109 arrests. Our jail audit almost dropped in half. We closed a jail in Miami last year and actually saved over $12 million in doing so. We have a misdemeanor diversion program. I never have to do what happened to that doctor again. If someone is arrested in Miami-Dade County within 2 to 3 days at the latest, if they have a serious mental illness, they're diverted to a community mental health crisis unit. We have 7 peer specialists that work for the court. 4 of them are graduates of our program. They go and they meet with the individual. They convince them to go into our program. We get their benefits, their housing, their treatment, and a plan to allow them to recover. The recidivism rate in our misdemeanor program dropped from 72 to 20%. So well, we expanded it to our felony division. The program in our felony is so successful that after 4 years, our recidivism rate is only 6%, saving the county almost 35 years of jail bed days. And we still have a lot to go, but I am convinced that the shortcomings of the community mental health system did not arise as a result of any one person, any one party, or any one institution. And it takes the kind of collaboration between everybody to step up and help fix this problem. If you'll indulge me for 1 second, I just received this letter about 2 days ago from a Clubhouse member in Miami. My name is George. I committed a crime which landed me in the city of Miami jail. I spent 11 months in custody, which 2 of those 11 months were spent at a state hospital. I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and depression. I was diagnosed in the past with a bipolar disorder since the age of 11 years old. I was later diagnosed with depression at age 15. Growing up with these disorders made life difficult to adjust. I began self-medicating as a teenager with alcohol and various drugs. At first it seemed as though I was coping with my illness until I began to realize that I was in trouble more often than not. Whether it was school, work, or friends, it seems I always found a way to mess things up. From alcohol to drug abuse, I became paranoid, anxious, and simply put, unstable. I could not control myself anymore. This all ended in a blaze of fire. During my stay in the county jail, I was visited by a representative of the jail diversion program who offered to give me the help I so desperately needed. I was released back into the community under the provision of the jail diversion program, who now monitors my behavior as well as my reintegration back into society. Part of this help was recommending that I join a program called Key Clubhouse in South Florida. It turned out to be much more than what I had hoped for. I became part of a special community, a place where I'd keep focus all day through a variety of tasks based on work order day. It felt as though I was at work and enjoying every bit of it. Since then, I've grown into a better person, focused on what is necessary for me. The Clubhouse focuses on reintegration into society in the working field with the intention of diminishing the stigma of mental illnesses. I'm surrounded by people who care for each other and their well-being. I had a certain set of skills before I joined the Key Clubhouse, which were put to good use and made me proud to have helped others with what I know. I am most thankful for the Key Clubhouse not only helping me personally, but ensuring that I find a job that suited me and helps me grow as an individual. Thank you, Clubhouse, for all that you have done and continue to do to improve our community one individual at a time. And that's what Clubhouse is about, helping one individual at a time get their life back in order, to have a happy, hopeful, wonderful life again. Thank you.